will answer. The speakers have not been given those questions ahead of time. Okay? That's how it runs. Our first one will be in about 7 minutes, but I do have the honor of introducing Micah Smith of Denver 7. She is our moderator and our traffic cop and a great presence on these forums. She's nothing but professional and a pretty nice person.
Thank you.
Micah, if you want a couple words?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. It's been my honor to join Denver Decides for a couple of seasons now, and I feel like it is such a great way to really go over the issues that matter to you, to us, the voters. I promise I may not be as tough as Lindsay Davis as we saw on Tuesday, but I will keep us on time, and I will make sure that everybody has a fair chance to get their points across in a clear and concise way before moving us forward to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak. So again, it's an honor to join you here on this Saturday, and I hope that you all leave here feeling informed, and I know that you will.
Oh yeah, a couple of things. Now, we're taping this on September 14th. We also will be taping some later on in September. You'll be able to see these on Channel 8. You have cable. If you have cable access, you'll get Channel 8. Or all of these forums starting in late September and all through early October up until Election Day in November. They'll be available to you anytime at denverdecides.com. That's our website. Also on denverdecides.com, hopefully you'll see candidate introductions because there are some candidate races for State House of Representatives, State Senate, and of course for U.S. Congress for District 1. All of that information will be there. We're building it now. Our crew is hard at work, and so that's what we have to say. So let's see. Dr. Lynne is here, and then Kim, you want to come up? We'll do our talk here. There.
We know each other for a long time.
Thank you. Do you just want me to leave it on? Do you even do it open? Do you even do it open? So no. Yes.
By the way, everyone, please turn your phones to vibrate. And if you want to take flash pictures, please do not use your flash if you want to take pictures. Thank you.
right, and it sounds like we're about 5 minutes out. So, second to relax. You have a minute to relax.
All right, I'm just going to warn you, your camera, see the little happy face right there, and Justine waving, that's going to be your camera if you want to address the audience. Right. Your camera is going to see that little happy face. Rob, wave me. That camera right there is if you want to address the audience, that's your camera.
Okay, thank you.
And then you were going to keep this roughly hand width away from your face.
Okay.
Don't be too far in or too far back.
Okay, great, thank you. So Micah, you're gonna see how long I can stand here in these heels, huh?
You know what? I will say this. That's always my fear. But once your adrenaline gets going, you'll be okay.
3 minutes.
All right.
No, this is Donna. Yeah, and you were with? I'm president of Colorado Union of Taxpayers.
There you go.
Okay, so nice to meet you. Nice to meet you.
2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Said I'm practicing standing up in these heels for a while. I haven't done this for a while. Well, we'll hope. No, I wish I did.
That's just for
We
me.
have quiet, please. 1 minute away. We're about to begin, and this time we really mean it.
All right.
For real. Oh yeah, here, this one is your,
What's the music about?
What?
Is it dead?
yeah, my phone. I have to kill music whenever I have power and lights. I ain't got a 48 volt my phone.
Hey, Micah, stand by 45 seconds. Here we go. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7, and welcome to Denver Decides. This community partnership is dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Interneighborhood Cooperation, and is presented by Denver 8 TV. Before we begin, we would like to extend a special thank you to our hosts for today's event, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Our mission today is to present a ballot issue forum in anticipation of the general election coming up on Tuesday, November 5th. Among the numerous amendment and ordinance questions on this year's ballot is ballot issue number 2Q. Now, this measure asks Denver voters if the city should raise the local sales tax by 0.34% to raise $70 million annually to help cover operational costs for what some have called the safety net hospital. Let's begin by meeting the participants who will discuss the pros and cons of ballot issue 2Q. And we want to start with, beginning to my right, Dr. Donna Lynne, the current CEO of the Denver Health and Hospital Authority. She will be speaking in favor of ballot issue 2Q. On my left, we have Kim Monson, the president of the Colorado Union of Taxpayers, and she will be speaking in opposition to ballot issue 2Q. Let's welcome both of our speakers. We will begin with 1 minute opening statements from both speakers. So Dr. Lynne, you are up first, speaking for ballot issue 2Q.
Thank you.
Well, a yes on 2Q ensures that Denver Health, Colorado's only safety net healthcare system, can continue to provide care to 280,000 patients a year, 16,000 young people in schools, over 80,000 people who need behavioral health care. And should any of you need care today, because you have some trauma, our paramedics would pick you up, take you to Denver Health, as they do 130,000 times a year. All regardless of your insurance status or your ability to pay. Most safety nets in America get about 11% from their local government. Denver Health gets 2.3%. This tax, vetted by over 100 community leaders and 1,000 voters, provides some stability for Denver Health, for pediatric care, for primary care, behavioral health, and emergency and trauma care. It is less than 20 cents per day. Despite the work that we do to tighten our belts, use philanthropy, get federal and state support, our uninsured population is going up at Denver Health. Without this, we will be forced to cut services to some of our most vulnerable citizens.
Thank you, Dr. Lynne. And now the opening statement from Kim Monson, speaking against ballot issue 2Q.
Thank you, Micah, and Donna, it's great to see you again. It's been a long time. Cartoonist Bob Fave said, I don't know if I can live on my income or not because the government won't let me try it. And Denver Health provides critical care and doctors and nurses and staff, and you do an amazing job. I have a colleague at work that had let pneumonia get out of hand, was taken to Denver Health, and his life was saved. So I really do appreciate that. But Denver Health, like other organizations that provide services, is being overrun with people who have come to Colorado illegally. The city of Denver has spent millions on housing, food, services, cash assistance, and more on people who have come here illegally. And some have come to pursue the American dream, and we love that. But some have come for free stuff, and some have come to hurt us. We don't know. So the Denver Health 2023 report to the city anticipates a 24% increase in uninsured care. Asking Denverites to pay higher sales taxes in this time of government-induced inflation, higher food costs, and higher energy costs is not sustainable. I encourage a no vote on ballot question 2Q.
And now, Dr. Lynne, you have an opportunity to ask Ms. Monson a question. We are moving to our question section here. And Ms. Monson, you will have 30 seconds to answer. So, Dr. Lynne, your question.
Great. So I'd like to both make a statement and a little bit of a question. Denver Health provides care to anyone regardless of ability to pay. And without Denver Health, I'd like to ask Ms. Monson, where would people, including Denver residents, get their care and be able to function as good citizens, good employees, and good students?
Well, quite frankly, we're not asking that Denver Health not be able to provide those services. But what we are asking is that instead of putting a Band-Aid on this 24% increase because of illegal immigration, that we need to actually address that problem first before we start to ask the people of Denver to pay more in taxes.
Okay, and now, Kim Monson, your turn to ask Dr. Lynne a question. Dr. Lynne, you will have 30 seconds to reply.
Because of government-induced inflation, higher food costs, higher energy costs, Denverites are having to make hard choices and cuts in their spending. Where can Denver Health tighten its belt to reduce its spending?
So Denver Health has done a number of things to reduce our spending. In fact, our budget increases by a pretty single-digit number every year. We have frozen executive salaries. We have introduced productivity initiatives. We've done some group purchasing. And I would argue that we are actually, Ernst & Young, who was hired by the city, said we were the most efficient safety net system in the country.
Let's continue with direct questions from our speakers. And Ms. Monson, another question for Dr. Lynne, and as before, you will have 30 seconds to reply.
It's been reported that Denver is per capita has the most illegal immigrants in the country. And so how much is being spent, Dr. Lynne, on individuals in Denver Health regarding people that have come here illegally?
So first, no hospital system in America has the ability to turn away anyone who comes to their door. There's a federal law called EMTALA. We have spent about $10 million over the last year on immigrants who have come here, but I will tell you that the problem Denver Health faces is $140 million for our very own citizens who come without insurance or the ability to pay.
Dr. Lynne, you have a question for Ms. Monson, and Kim, you will have 30 seconds for your response.
Yeah, my question is, if without healthy people, how can we have a healthy society? So I'd love to know what Ms. Monson suggests is the answer to, quite frankly, a broken healthcare system right now that doesn't take care of everybody in the country.
That's a really good question. I think as we've gone through this whole experience of COVID, that individuals need to actually take more ownership of their own health to make sure that they're checking diet, exercise, and do things to be proactive on their own health. And certainly having a critical care facility like Denver Health is important. And again, you do a great job if somebody has been injured, trauma type of injuries. But I think that we as Americans have to take more ownership of our own health care so that we are not continuing to just look to others, pharmaceuticals and hospitals, to put a Band-Aid on things that maybe we could do ourselves.
Thank you, Ms. Monson. Our next few rounds will feature our speakers responding to questions submitted by our forum organizers. Each speaker will answer each question, and they will have 30 seconds for their answers. So Dr. Lynne, who is here speaking again in support of Ballot Issue 2Q, you will be first to answer. Your question is, if this measure is not approved by voters, what is the next best method for the City of Denver to raise funds for Denver Health?
Well, thank you for that. I actually don't think there is a next best method. The city has its own challenges, and as I said, the magnitude of the problem that we face, which is $140 million of uncompensated care, is certainly challenging. We have talked to the federal government, to the state, who allocated $5 million to us this year, but there really isn't another revenue source. The reality is it will mean cuts in services if this ballot measure does not go through.
And now Kim Monson, who is here speaking again against Ballot Issue 2Q, your response to that question.
Well, there are two sales tax questions that Denverites will be voting on. If both of these pass, the sales tax rate in Denver will be like 9.6%. That means 9.6% on almost everything that you purchase. Denver does not tax some food items and some other medical items, but that is a tremendous increase, and I would submit to you that that's tax gouging.
We will move on to our next question from our organizers for our guests. And Ms. Monson, you will be first to respond to this one with a 30-second response. Uncompensated care is one of Denver Health's greatest expenses. Will funds from this sales tax make a significant impact on covering the cost of uncompensated care?
One more time, Micah.
Okay. Uncompensated care is one of Denver Health's greatest expenses. Will funds from this sales tax make a significant impact on covering the cost of uncompensated care?
If this sales tax increases, it would actually, I think, be used for uncompensated care. But what we don't see is the money that is being taken out of everyday Coloradans' pockets every day because of this tax. And that's one of the problems that people don't realize, is that this makes life less affordable. It makes it more difficult for people to then buy their insurance, their health care. So it's a vicious cycle. Higher taxes and more spending. It's just a vicious cycle.
Dr. Lynne, your response.
This is 20 cents a day for the average person who lives in Colorado. I would suggest that that is important to take care of all of us, take care of some of the more vulnerable people who might be living on the street, young people who are in schools. I think it is a very reasonable price to ensure that people are healthy, they can graduate from schools, and they can be productive employees and citizens in our city.
Let's continue with questions submitted by the forum organizers, and Dr. Lynne, you will respond first for this round. Denver Health serves patients from throughout the metropolitan area. What steps are being taken to secure funding on a region-wide level?
It's a great question. As I said, we take care of patients when they're brought to our emergency room, regardless of whether they live in Denver, the regional area, or around the state. That's a federal law. We have met with our legislators over the last couple of years. They have given Denver Health $11 million over the last 2 years, recognizing that many of our patients do come from Jefferson, Adams, and Arapahoe, and other counties. We've also gotten great support from our 2 senators to support Denver Health, as well as Congresswoman DeGette.
And now, Ms. Monson, your response to that question.
Well, Denver Health definitely does a great job in serving our communities. However, we need to address not put a Band-Aid on what is happening with illegal immigration into the city of Denver. When you bring 40,000 people into this city, we don't know where they came from. We don't know whether or not they're here for free stuff, to hurt us, or for the American dream. We need to actually solve that problem first before we ask people to dig even deeper into their pockets, as they're just trying to rub nickels to keep things together so that they can take care of themselves and their families without government assistance.
In our final round of submitted questions, Ms. Monson, you will be first to answer this question. What other options do you suggest for putting Denver Health on a sustainable financial footing for the long term?
I think that that's a question that each of us are having to ask ourselves. Again, as we're facing higher inflation, higher food costs, higher energy costs, we don't have this unending revenue source. And it's important that governmental entities realize that as well. So as we are having to tighten our belts to make sure that we can make ends meet, I think that we need to ask the same of our governmental agencies and Denver Health.
Now, Dr. Lynne, your response to that question.
Well, I believe that health care is a fundamental right, just like public education. But in America, we don't do that. There are 400,000 people in the state of Colorado who do not have health insurance, whether they work in the gig economy, whether they work for small retailers who can't afford to pay for the cost of health care. Denver Health, unlike every system in Colorado, fills that gap for people who sometimes have communicable diseases that we worry about, who need care to be productive citizens. We pick people up off the street, we take them to the care that they need, and I'm proud of the work that we do.
Lynne. Okay. On behalf of the forum organizers, I would like to thank both of you for your participation in this forum. Let's give them a round of applause. We hope we have given you a fair look at the pro and con arguments for Ballot Issue 2Q. Again, it asks voters if the city should raise the local sales tax by 0.34% to raise $70 million annually to help cover operational costs for what some have called the city's safety net hospital. Our thanks also to the Denver Decides partners, which include Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation and the League of Women Voters of Denver. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. We would like to extend a special thank you to our host for today's event, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Remember, the election is Tuesday, November 5th. Let your voice be heard. Be sure you are registered and be sure to vote. For complete election information online, you can go to denverdecides.org. I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7. Thank you for joining us.
And we're clear, next forum is in about 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay. I can say.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. You know what? I don't quite know. Thank you. I appreciate it. Real talk. Oh, Nancy, thank you.
All right, everybody, if I can have the next person that's supposed to come up to this one, come up to this one. never going to work.
Know that you're watching or listening, however you're Thank you. Oh, thank you. That was good. Oh, that's okay. That's okay. I'm all right because I get my day right. It's balance, right? Thank you, Nancy. Absolutely.
Albus Brooks?
I have these turned down. Do you need one of these?
Yes. No, I'll use my voice.
Yeah, that's kind of where I was at. I can yell.
Albus Brooks?
Oh, is that who we're looking for? You could have just told me it was Albus. Come on up. You could have just told me it was Albus. Yeah. No, you don't know this. Do you miss us? You just missed us.
Okay. Yeah.
Same deal. Do you need water or anything?
Oh, that'd be great.
I'm going to tip that up.
Thank you. No. No, it wasn't. Yeah, I don't know who did that.
You remember how to do this? Roughly a hand width away from your
Yep.
face? Yeah.
Got it.
And then that little happy face, that's your home camera right over there.
Where? Over here?
Yeah,
Okay.
the little orange
Yep.
guy.
Awesome.
Justine, wait. That's
All right. Yep. What? We're gonna get some. I know, but
Well, staffing like which?
someone brought up.
That's probably not we're gonna shatter him. I think it's just like, yeah, there's always been controversy about TPS. One thing is our schools are perfect.
Okay, everybody, 3 minutes. We're 3 minutes away. Kim, you need fresh water? All right.
This is the,
This is,
Hi.
Albus Brooks, Kim Monson.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
Okay.
How are you? Good to see you.
How are you?
I'm great. Yeah.
2 minutes. This is also 15 minutes.
We're 2 minutes out. Hello, I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7, and welcome to Denver Decides. The community partnership is dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Interneighborhood Cooperation, and is presented by Denver 8 TV. Before we begin, we would like to extend a special thank you to our hosts for today's events, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Our mission today is to present a ballot issue forum in anticipation of the general election coming up on Tuesday, November 5th. Among the numerous amendment and ordinance questions of this year's ballot is ballot issue number 4A. Now, this measure asks Denver voters if Denver Public Schools should issue $1 million in bonds to repair and maintain 154 DPS buildings, primarily schools. So let's begin by meeting the participants who will discuss the pros and cons of ballot issue 4A. Beginning at my right is Albus Brooks, former City Council President and currently the chair of DPS's Community Planning and Advisory Committee. He will be speaking in favor of ballot issue 4A. And on my left is Kim Monson, the president of the Colorado Union of Taxpayers, and she will be speaking in opposition to ballot issue 4A. Let's welcome both of our speakers. We will begin with 1-minute opening statements from both speakers. Mr. Brooks, you are up first, speaking for ballot issue 4A.
Thank you. For the first 5 months of this year, I was one of the 6 co-chairs with more than 70 community leaders who worked with Denver Public Schools to put forth 4A proposal on the November ballot. This package includes $975 million worth of essential DPS needs, including air conditioning in every school. 4A will not raise your taxes. 4A will not raise your taxes and save millions in taxpayer dollars by lengthening the useful life of the existing buildings. If 4A fails, DPS will be forced to pay for facility improvements with funds that would otherwise go to attracting and retaining quality teachers and improving classroom instruction. Learning environments are essential, and if we learned anything during COVID, we need learning environments matter, and we need to invest in them at the highest rate possible.
Thank you, Mr. Brooks. And now opening statement from Kim Monson speaking against ballot issue 4A.
Thank you, Micah. This year's ballot will be long, complicated, and confusing. It's important that voters are informed about the issues and how these issues personally affect them. Denverites are hurting from high government-induced inflation and high property taxes. I am concerned that continual extensions and increases in property taxes will tax people out of their homes and require continual rent increases for renters. Higher property taxes make housing less affordable. It's a vicious cycle. Higher taxes, less affordability. A majority of Denverites' taxes go to Denver Public Schools. Property taxes for Denverites increased anywhere from 20 to 40% plus or more over the last couple of years, creating a windfall of taxes for these taxing entities. Even with this windfall, Denver Public Schools is asking Denverites to take on an additional $1 billion in debt with an estimated repayment cost of $1.9 billion. This during a time when DPS is closing schools, facing declining enrollment, and predicting another 8% decline in enrollment by 2028.
Thank you, Ms. Monson. Now we've heard opening statements from both of you, so now Mr. Brooks, you have an opportunity to ask Ms. Monson a question, and Kim, you will have 30 seconds to answer. Albus, your question.
Thank you. In the past, your podcast has been sponsored by the Christian Home Educators of Colorado, who have testified that public schools and compulsory student attendance were created to indoctrinate children. Do you believe we should move away from taxpayer-funded public schools altogether?
It's a good question. I think that taxpayers want results. I just recently had gotten a report from Chalkbeat, and it said the CMAS scores in 2024 for Denver Public Schools for third graders who met or exceeded grade level expectation in language arts was only 40.7% and only 31.2% in math. So when we are letting kids down like that, because they need these critical skills to be able to be successful in life, we need to really take a look at when we're asked to pay more in taxes.
And now, Ms. Monson, your turn to ask Mr. Brooks a question, and Albus, you'll have 30 seconds to reply.
Mr. Brooks, it seems that the ballot language on question 4A is contrived and disingenuous. Extending taxes that would have gone away is actually a tax increase. 4A begins without imposing any new tax. But how can an entity issue almost $1 billion in debt with a total estimated repayment cost of $1.9 billion and pay that back without extending any existing taxes?
Thanks for the question. As you know, our ballot language is legally put together, so there was nothing that's being contrived. Secondly, our tax rate will not increase. We will not be increasing any taxes at all. And so, and third, what I'm most excited about, once this passes, we put together a bond oversight committee to ensure that we are legally responsible for all the promises and commitments that this bond put forward.
Let's continue with the direct questions from our speakers. And Ms. Monson, another question for Mr. Brooks. And as before, you'll have 30 seconds to reply.
Okay. What happened to the 20 to 40% plus windfall of tax revenue that was generated by the recent property reassessments after the repeal of the Gallagher Amendment?
Well, if you want to get into details of operations at DPS, I'm excited to kind of talk about that. I think moving towards the future, we have over 200 buildings in DPS that are aging and really struggling. And so what we find is that they're in critical repair right now. And if we do not, in this bond, most of this bond is put towards deferred maintenance. If we do not address these things, our kids they're in trouble. And if we don't do it right away, it will go into our operations budgets and come out of what our kids are doing.
And now, Mr. Brooks, another question for Ms. Monson. And Ms. Monson, you will have 30 seconds for your response.
I believe, Ms. Monson, air conditioning is important. I'm sure that as in learning environments, it's important that our kids are in an environment where we have air conditions and they're safe. Do you have air conditioning in your home?
I do, and I wish they had air conditioning in this church right now. It's a little warm. Was that your question?
That's my question.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Well, we will move on to our next few rounds.
Could I then expound upon that?
I would need, you can't. You have 22 seconds.
Yes, I do have air conditioning in my home, and I agree with you that there are some things in this bond question that do make some sense. However, I'm wondering, I'm going to date myself, but when I was a kid, we went to school from Labor Day to Memorial Day most years, and those were cooler years. Having kids go to school at the beginning or middle of August, which is one of our hottest months, doesn't make a lot of sense. So certainly air conditioning is a good idea. That's one thing in this bond question that makes sense, but I don't think that the big, huge package should be approved.
Monson. Okay, now we will move on to questions submitted from our four organizers. Each speaker will each have a chance to answer the question, and they will have 30 seconds to do so. So Albus Brooks, who is here speaking in support of ballot issue 4A, you will answer the first. If this bond is not approved by voters, what is the next best way to pay for these school improvements?
Well, unfortunately, we do not have a next best way. As I said before, we have over 200 buildings with an average age of 50 years. And so we have had a third party come and assess each of the buildings, and they're in critical maintenance. And if this bond does not pass, we will have to go into our operational dollars to pay for all of this, which goes into our learning environments and also teacher education.
And now, Kim Monson, your response to that question.
Add the question again.
If this bond is not approved by voters, what is the next best way to pay for these school improvements?
I think that it's time the governmental entities pull up their sleeves, look under the couch cushions, and see what can be done. With DPS actually closing schools, what is going to be done with those schools? Perhaps they could be sold and create revenue to then refurbish some of these other schools. So what is occurring with that?
And our next question from our organizers for our guests. Ms. Monson, you will respond first, and you'll have 30 seconds to answer. Will Denver property owners pay an increased amount of taxes for these bonds?
My understanding is what will happen is that there are bond questions that will have been approved by Denver voters, and those bonds will be extended. So when Mr. Brooks says that without raising property taxes, if your property taxes were going to go down, but yet now they're still just going to be extended, granted that's the same amount from here to there, but it is a tax increase from what would happen if those bonds were paid off. And so it's a bit disingenuous to say that without increasing taxes, because in essence it's an extension of taxes.
Thank you, Kim. And now, Mr. Brooks, your response to that question.
No, but in all honesty, I've answered this question before. The tax rate is not increasing. The tax rate is staying the same, and so that's why legally we are not increasing taxes can be put on the ballot language so that we're very clear with our voters.
Our final round of submitted questions from the forum organizers, and Albus, you'll be first to respond to this question. You'll have 30 seconds. What impact on the need for this bond issue will the district's declining enrollment and likely school closures be?
Say that again, what the impact?
What impact on the need for this bond issue will the district's declining enrollment and likely school closures be?
You know, this is an interesting question, and I feel like I have three kids in DPS, and we are projecting that enrollment is coming up, but we also see a huge increase in the north part of Denver, and that's where we're investing a lot of these dollars. And so I believe we have used a lot of data to really guide us in this process, a lot of community input, and we feel like this is exactly what needs to happen.
And now, Kim, your response to that question.
And one more time, Micah, please.
What impact on the need for this bond issue will the district's declining enrollment and likely school closures be?
Well, I would say that that's a very good question and that it needs to be addressed.
That your answer? All right. On behalf of the forum organizers, we'd like to thank both of you for your participation in this forum. We hope we have given you a fair look at the pro and con arguments for ballot issue 4A. Again, it asks voters if the Denver Public Schools should issue $975 million to repair and maintain 154 DPS buildings, primarily schools. Our thanks also to the Denver Decides partners, which include Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation and the League of Women Voters. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. We would like to extend a special thank you to our hosts for today's event, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association, and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Remember, Election Day is Tuesday, November 5th. Let your voice be heard, be sure you are registered, and be sure to vote. For complete election information online, go to denverdecides.org. I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7. Thanks for joining us.
And we're clear. Next forum begins at 10 o'clock.
I wish we could keep the doors open. video person. David's coming right out. You on the next one?
I don't as it is really.
Are you debating the mayor? We have too many of these today. I don't even know what we're Micah, which one's next? Okay, so you're not this one, but the next one. Okay. You're nice and early.
Thank you.
Or actually, let me double check that.
See, I know, I keep getting it all mixed up today.
I didn't
You're
get a
a
notice.
though.
I didn't get a notice of a time change, but I think the Slaughterhouse.
No, this is affordable housing.
Okay, so it goes affordable housing, then Slaughterhouse.
Yes.
Then Slaughterhouse and then
Then
Furman.
Furman.
Okay.
I'm David DeMille.
David, I'm Landon Gates.
Hey,
Nice to
Landon.
meet you.
Nice to meet you. Thanks for coming.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you can watch one before you're up.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll be over there.
This is my my first campaign debate ever.
Good. Well, they'll go fine.
I hope. I hope.
The biggest thing is you have to watch your countdown clock.
Yeah. All right.
Well, Michael will shut you in. Good.
New rule, air conditioning in all of our locations.
Oh, it's in white.
Yeah, stopped it. How long is this one? Parady's fucking
He's outside of the stop.
Of course. Do you want me to try to hurry? I can be like, hey, we got it.
And then you'd have to because the chairs are to show you cars and see you. Good. Yeah. You're doing well. Yeah?
He gave a warning. He's just with Albus Brooks out.
Somehow they're drawn to each other.
Who's debating the mayor?
Kim. I don't know. I've been back there. This is your last one.
Doing great.
Sorry they didn't explain it much.
That's brutal. Now you're debating here.
Thank God you have the skills.
That's amazing. Is she still on the side?
Because they wanted it to be there. Then they said,
Oh,
"Who's your One more. About 3 minutes. We get him in here so we can start.
Okay, you said Anthony right here.
Yeah, sure, myself.
Does this hair look okay? I don't, it's okay. Thanks.
Yeah.
Take care of it.
Or just don't lean, like, make sure you're not leaning in too far. It's just because I have to take out all the houses.
So what's happening?
No, never played it on my
It's not you, it's her.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
All right. I was so close.
Hi, Kim.
Kim Monson?
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Mayor Johnston. How you doing? Nice to see you.
You bet. Thanks for having me. Good morning.
You remember this? Keep it roughly a hand width away from your face. You see that little happy face right there? That's your home camera.
That's my happy place.
Yep.
That's your home camera.
Great.
And the countdown will be right there.
Great.
You need a water or anything?
I don't. The order of do you have sort of an order of the run of show?
Opening statements.
Yep. And then back and forth questions.
Back and forth, and then 4 questions submitted by the organizers.
Okay, great.
This is 15 minutes long.
Okay. It'll be speed round.
Oh, yeah. Okay, we're 2 minutes away, maybe 3 minutes away. Quiet, please.
Cool. Thank you.
Good morning. How are you all? Thanks for being here.
Micah, question. Is there a time limit on the question that I ask? A time limit when I ask any question?
Concise.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7, and welcome to Denver Decides. This community partnership is dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, and is presented by Denver 8 TV. Before we begin, we would like to extend a special thank you to our hosts for today's event, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Our mission today is to present a ballot issue forum in anticipation of the general election coming up on Tuesday, November 5th. Among the numerous amendments and ordinance questions on this year's ballot is ballot issue number 2R. This measure asks Denver voters if Denver's sales and use taxes should be increased by 0.5% to generate $100 million a year to build, maintain, and acquire affordable housing units and reduce rents. Let's begin by meeting the participants who will discuss the pros and cons of ballot issue 2R. Beginning at my right is Mike Johnston, the mayor of Denver. He will be speaking in favor of ballot issue 2R. And on my left is Kim Monson, the president of the Colorado Union of Taxpayers, and she will be speaking in opposition to Ballot Issue 2R. Let's welcome both of our speakers. We will begin with 1-minute opening statements from both speakers. Mr. Johnston, you are up first for Ballot Issue 2R.
Well, thank you so much to the folks that are here today, and thank you to the viewers at home. We know what is happening across Denver tonight, which is we have somewhere a teacher who has raised 2 kids and is worried every month that her rent is going to get increased one more time and she's not going to be able to continue to live and work in this city. We have a senior living on a fixed income who wants to be able to stay in the neighborhood where her grandkids are growing up and also knows that she's not going to be able to afford to live in this city much longer as rents go up and up. We have a high school kid who went to West High School and graduated from college and got a great job and wants to come back to Denver and knows now, as he looks at the rents, there's no way he can live in the city where he grew up. We know that we want Denver to be a place that can still be home for the folks who have loved it for so long. And if we do nothing, what we know is we're going to risk losing 45,000 families who tonight can't afford to live in Denver, even though they're fighting with everything they have to stay. We want to make sure we have a path for those families to stay in Denver, to make Denver their home, and to keep Denver affordable. That's why we're putting this measure on the ballot. That's why we'd love your support.
And now the opening statement from Kim Monson speaking against Ballot Issue 2R.
Well, Mark Twain said, "I shall never use profanity except in discussing house rent and taxes." Higher taxes make life less affordable for everyone. Increasing taxes at a time when Denverites have less money in their pockets because of government-induced inflation, high property taxes, and high energy costs is uncompassionate. If approved, 2R would increase Denver's sales tax by 14%, from 3.5% to 4%. Currently, Denver's total sales tax rate is 8.81. This is tax gouging. If 2R and the other proposed sales tax increases both pass, Denver's total sales tax rate would shoot to one of the highest sales tax cities in the country at 9.65%. There is a cause and effect. Many times individuals will choose to shop and dine in other jurisdictions with friendlier taxes, thereby reducing sales tax revenue in Denver. Additionally, as fundamentally when government programs hurt individuals by picking winners and losers.
We have heard opening statements from both of you. So now, Mayor Johnston, you have an opportunity to ask Ms. Monson a question. Ms. Monson, you will have 30 seconds to answer Mr. Johnston. Your question?
Thanks, Ms. Monson, for being here. Looking forward to the conversation. I think my question is, you've named that we know affordable housing is a crisis. We know we have teachers and nurses and firefighters across the city who will be pushed out. We know that we're 45,000 units short of the number of units that we need. We know that there's a big federal funding cliff that is going away, which means we're shorter, more resources than ever. We know we see more and more units getting built in our neighborhoods, and they're all unaffordable because they're coming in at luxury rates. And we know the market has not been able to solve this problem on its own in Denver or anyplace else. So knowing that, what is your affirmative solution, if not 2R, for how we're going to bring on the 45,000 units of affordable housing that stay affordable for families long-term in Denver?
Well, ultimately, what you're talking about is government subsidized housing. And when that happens, government picks winners and losers. So one of the culprits in this whole thing is certainly higher taxes. And with the repeal of the Gallagher Amendment, people saw that their property taxes rise anywhere from 20 to 40% plus. And so we really need to address that. We need to address these high taxes, which are really pushing people out of their homes, because I'm concerned that if we continue this spiral of higher and higher taxes, that people will be priced out of their homes.
And now, Ms. Monson, your turn to ask Mayor Johnston a question. Mayor Johnston, you'll have 30 seconds to reply.
Okay, thank you. A report from the National Association of Home Builders and National Multifamily Housing Council explains that 40.6% of the cost of multifamily development and 23.8% of the cost of single-family homes is due to rules and regulations. What rules and regulations could Denver reduce or eliminate to make housing affordable for all?
I'm really glad that you asked that, because this is a very important part of the solution for us, which is how do we make sure it's easier to build in Denver and it's cheaper to build in Denver. And one of the ways we're doing that is by accelerating the amount of time it takes to permit and build a project. Right now, this year, have already reduced the amount of permitting time by 30% to be able to build units. We'll continue to build that more aggressively. We've started a special fast track for people that are building units that are affordable so that they can get permitted and approved much faster to bring units on more quickly. So we do think reducing the cost of construction is important, and that's part of what we're doing with slowing permitting time. We'd love to talk more about how we can also reduce the cost cost of
Thank you,
innovative
Mayor
financing,
Johnston.
which I'll come back to.
And we will continue with direct questions from our speakers. And Ms. Monson, you have another question for Mayor Johnston. As before, you'll have 30 seconds to reply.
It's been reported that Denver per capita has more illegal immigrants than any other American city, which creates more demand for housing. It's not fair to tax and force Denverites who have been living, working, and paying taxes for years to pay for the services and housing for people who have come to America illegally. Homelessness is rampant in Denver, even though millions of dollars has been spent on the homelessness industrial complex here in Denver. That housing program is not working. Given that program's track record, why should Denverites trust that this new tax and spend program would be successful?
Great. Love to talk homelessness and migrants in 28 seconds. So first answer is we're very proud of the fact that we have over the last 14 months brought 1,872 people off the streets and into housing. That has housed more people faster than any city in America. And most importantly, we have decreased family homelessness by 83%. We've decreased tent homelessness by 50%. We will be the largest city in America to end homelessness for veterans on the street this year. Those are all critical steps. And we have reduced the total amount of spending on homelessness by $70 million from this year to next. I would love to talk about services for our newcomers, but I'm out of time. Just want to respect your time.
Yes. Mayor Johnston, you do have another question for Ms. Monson, and you'll have 30 seconds to respond.
Great. I think that the question I have is what we see right now happening in the housing market is that you see more and more units coming on that are unaffordable, that are luxury units at $2,000 or $3,000 a month that neighbors tell me over and over, I see this unit go up in my neighborhood, but nothing here can I actually afford. And so that is what the market's building. I want to know what your proposal is for how we bring on units that are going to be permanently affordable for teachers and nurses and firefighters if we do not have a path to be able to put requirements on those units.
I think the first place to start is these rules and regulations that is making it more expensive to build single-family homes and to build multifamily units. And I think we also need to get to a point where we have the path for ownership. So instead of all of these apartments, that young people have the opportunity to buy a condo so that they can start to create equity. But the reason that that's not occurring is because of government. So we need to get government out of the way, and I think that we could start to see these costs be reduced.
Our next few rounds will feature our speakers responding to questions submitted by our forum organizers. Each speaker will answer each question, and they will have 30 seconds for their answer. Mayor Johnston, who is here speaking in support of Ballot Issue 2R, you will be the first to answer this question. In your opinion, if this issue is not approved by the voters, what is the next best way to pay for additional affordable housing in Denver?
I think if this does not pass, what we know is we need to build about 4,000 to 5,000 affordable units a year if we want to keep families in Denver. If it doesn't pass, after the federal dollars run out, we would be building around 1,000 to 1,500 a year next year. So that'll leave us with about 3,000 families in Denver each year that will be priced out of the city. That's the challenge that we're facing. And so I think what we would have to do in that context is look at what other options are. You can apply for federal grants. You can apply state dollars. We're already maxing out federal and state dollars. And so I think you'll see this as a crisis all over the country. We want Denver to be the city that actually addresses it, so you don't become the San Franciscos or the Austins or the New Yorks where no one can afford to live.
And now Kim Monson, who is here speaking against Ballot Issue 2R, your response to that question.
One more time.
In your opinion, if this issue is not approved by voters, what is the next best way to pay for additional affordable housing in Denver?
Well, again, when you take a look at this, and rules and regulations are increasing the cost over 40% for multifamily units and 24% for single-family homes, that is a place to start, is to reduce the onerous rules and regulations for building. And I think that people might have missed it, but I think that what I heard you say is that you were fast-tracking permits for the affordable housing units, but that's not an even playing field, because developers that would like to build maybe a lesser price point house, they don't have the same level playing field on the permitting situation that subsidized housing does.
And we'll move on to our next question from our organizers for our guests. And Ms. Monson, you'll respond first. You'll have 30 seconds. How can a sales tax that will be an added expense on people who already struggle with paying their bills now be considered a benefit to them?
I agree. I think that is a very good question. Quite frankly, how can you really make sense that you're going to charge a higher sales tax, because sales taxes are regressive. They hurt the people the most that are trying to move up the economic ladder. So taxing them more to give some benefit to somebody else that is chosen by governmental entities is just not fair.
Now, Mike, your response.
Great, I'm glad you asked this. So the data is this sales tax, most importantly, does not apply to groceries, does not apply to gas, does not apply to the core set of products you buy to support yourself. Total impact on a family would be about $2 a week. Important to know that 35% of all the sales tax in Denver are paid by non-Denver residents. Many are paid by tourists. But most importantly, the benefit you're talking about is the single most important bill in a family's stack right now in Denver by far is housing, the price of housing. What you're talking about is a $2 a week impact for a family that is trying to support themselves, looking at $800 to $1,000 a month of reduced rent. That math is actually very easy to do. I would take $2 a week increased payment for $1,000 a month decreased rent. That's the opportunity for families that want to stay.
We do want to continue with our questions submitted by the forum organizers. Mayor Johnston, you'll be first to answer this round. Unhoused individuals live not only in Denver, but throughout the metropolitan area. What is being done with other cities in the metro area to address homelessness in a coordinated fashion and on a region-wide basis?
Yeah, we are partnering right now with other cities and counties on how we can approach this problem collaboratively. We just opened a facility 2 weeks ago that is a partnership with Adams County, where they have co-invested in the project with us, and we're helping support individuals from both Adams County and from Denver. So we think it is a regional problem. We also know the great majority of that challenge rests in Denver because we're the capital city, and many other counties don't offer shelter or supportive services. So folks come to us for those services. We're happy to support them in being successful. I'm very happy that we now are on a path to have closed all 18 of the largest encampments in the city, and we think that's a great step forward.
Okay. And Monson, your response?
And again?
Unhoused individuals live not only in Denver, but throughout the metropolitan area. What is being done with other cities in the metro area to address homelessness in a coordinated fashion and on a region-wide basis?
What really needs to happen first and foremost is to address the reason for homelessness. And the elephant in the room is that a lot of it is addiction, and we need to address that. So instead of just looking at putting a Band-Aid on of charging everybody else for housing units for those that are homeless, we need to really dig down into the tragedy of why this is occurring. And we really need to address that. I went through the facility of Step Denver, which is a great program where men come in and they are taught the tools on how to become productive individuals.
Thank you, Kim Monson. And our final round of submitted questions, and Ms. Monson, you'll be first to answer. And this is a long question, so everybody stay with me here, okay? Just under 2 years ago, Colorado voters supported the passage of Proposition 123, a ballot initiative to address the housing crisis in our state. Prop 123 was Colorado's first statewide affordable housing ballot measure. How does the proposed affordable housing tax fit into state-supported funding? Does it overlap, or is it an additional source of income?
Micah, that is a good question. And that is a question I'll need to do some research on how those two things interface. But once again, government subsidized housing in many ways takes away the dignity of people being able to work and take care of themselves. It takes away the dignity of being able to pay for their own lives. And then also what happens is it takes away many times the opportunity of home ownership, which has created wealth for the middle class throughout America for many years.
Did you need that?
No, I got the question.
Okay.
Two things. One is I want to address, it is actually incredibly important for us to start at the root causes of homelessness. The root causes of homelessness are the cost of housing. Look at the 10 most expensive cities in America and look at the 10 highest homeless rates in the country. You will find the single highest rate of homelessness in the country is San Jose, California. Why? Because the average home price in San Jose is $1.3 million. That is what happens when housing becomes unaffordable. That's why this step is so important. And this is designed exactly to partner with Prop 123, which is state level dollars, and federal dollars through the LIHTC program to additionally add on local dollars to make more deals pencil. We have 2,000 units of affordable housing wanting to be built in Denver right now that are stalled because they don't have enough financing to get across the finish line. This gets them across the finish line.
Thank you, Mayor Johnston. On behalf of the forum organizers, we'd like to thank both of you for your participation in this forum. We hope we have given you a fair look at the pro and con arguments for Ballot Issue 2R. Again, it asks voters if Denver's sales and use taxes should be increased by 0.5% to generate $100 million a year to build, maintain, and acquire affordable housing units and reduce rents. Our thanks also to the Denver Decides partners, which include Interneighborhood Cooperation and the League of Women Voters of Denver. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. We would like to extend a special thank you to our hosts for today's event, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Remember, the election is Tuesday, November 5th. Let your voice be heard, be sure you are registered, and be sure to vote. For complete election information online, go to denverdecides.org. I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
All right, we're clear?
Yeah, thank you. Oh,
Next
you're
forum.
totally fine. You hung in there.
Next forum is in 10 minutes.
The other speaker's on her way.
Cool. Who are we waiting on?
Waiting on Natalie and Slaughter comes before her. And Robin Kniech.
I know, I already said hi to her.
There she is.
Hey!
Robin Kniech.
Any idea why the other camera crew's here? Oh, okay.
Can I give these to you? Thank you.
Micah. How are you?
Good. How are you, Robin?
Good. You look fabulous, as always.
Thank you.
Oh, that's gonna not fit, so. All right.
It's working so far, nobody's punched them all the way through. Doing good.
Yes.
That's the timer screen right there.
Oh, there is one. Okay, I couldn't see that, so.
No, the big numbers will be there.
All right.
Mics are on.
Okay. You're very sweet.
No, everybody's
Well, and then we have what, 22 the last one?
Yeah. Those are good questions. Yeah. Yeah.
Down my, I live at 17 Tampa, and so we parade in, right in front of my apartment, and downtown Denver once a year, and it's so awesome.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, like I look out my window, and there's just a bunch of skiers coming down the road. I just thought that was interesting.
I am still a little bit out there.
You are.
Yeah, I just been doing some research and writing. Doing a lot of inclusionary counseling. The best. The industry has a lot of opinions about taking the other side of it, which is coming out soon. Unique stories. Yeah, I reached out to your producer and never heard back. Which one? I don't remember. Okay. I did a couple of the articles that I would very much. So I was like, oh, why would I well, if it wasn't for real talk.
Everybody got 2 minutes?
Yeah.
I always tell people, talk to that room, and then you won't need a microphone.
We are ready.
So say, I can be.
There you go.
So speak to us.
Did you see Katie?
Do you just think like a fall?
No. I think we've done that before, right? Where we just did one.
The city council people hear all the contested ones.
Am I doing that? I don't think. Oh, perfect. I was gonna. That's what I was thinking. Do you want me to see?
I didn't wear a
Natalie?
jacket.
If we're two, Natalie. Hey, guys. David. We are still looking for Natalie, guys.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I kind of knew not to wear a jacket in here. Love churches, but.
where's Natalie?
Her people said she's walking up.
Okay.
That could mean a lot of things.
The best laid plans.
Yeah.
What time is it? I
It's
took.
exactly 28 after.
Yeah, so she's way late, because you said to be here at 10.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm a little
So
fast.
we'll go fast, but we should be 4 minutes, right?
4 minutes.
No, this isn't for me. You didn't need me for the candidate stuff, right? Or, I know we have one more afterwards. Okay.
It's just the council members explaining the ones that have no opposition. They declared opposition.
Cool. Well, I think those are interesting. We're going to do so we'll have the different size too.
I'm trying to get the phone crew audio real quick.
Okay.
Let me know when you're on the person.
All right.
Yeah. We're going to, I know we're doing open
That's her.
house at some point, so. Oh, David.
Oh, good, those are all.
Here you go.
She didn't get the time change, it sounds like.
Natalie, Fulton.
How many emails do I send out?
I opened every one of them, and I noticed.
Natalie, hi. Robin Kniech.
Hi.
Met the other day.
David.
Hey, good to meet you.
David, real quick, can I see what was the affordable housing? You hear it? Oh, did I get? Okay. I'm gonna put affordable housing. That was 2R. Perfect. Got it. That's okay. I just saw this is my old one, I think. So ballot question 2R. Okay, thank you.
Well, you know, when I'm not on a campaign, you can invite me back to moderate. How about that? I'm doing some NC gigs now. It's a lot of fun. Now, are you still thinking?
Actually, David, let me see it one more time. I shouldn't have given it to you because I'm getting crazy. Okay, thank you. This is not for us. This is for my Instagram. Only the most important thing. Right. Ooh, thank you. Yes. Times I need a Beyonce fan.
We're all Beyonce this day.
Sally's here.
There you go. Yeah, I like that.
I do. He's got an iPhone.
Direct city council, and then I direct the Red Rock stuff. I've been here 10 years. Going.
I was at Brady Carlisle.
Oh yeah, I try to work Brady Carlisle every year. It's great. Yeah. Oh, we have a lesbian as one of our directors, and so she officially gets one of the Brady Carlisle. It's like you can't take it away.
Are
from
we getting close?
Yeah, like it's default. Like.
David, are we getting close?
I heard Tad told me that Tad's got it.
Okay.
Okay, places, please.
Hi. Welcome. Oh, hello. All right, you remember this. Keep a hand width away from your face. That little face right there, wave Robert, is your home key.
Awesome.
We're going to keep this roughly a hand width away from your face and see that little face right there and that little wave. That's your home camera.
All right.
Good job.
Okay, and we're standing by.
30 seconds.
Hello, I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7, and welcome to Denver Decides. This community partnership is dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, and is presented by Denver 8 TV. Before we begin, we would like to extend a special thank you to our hosts for today's event, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Our mission today is to present a ballot issue forum in anticipation of the general election coming up on Tuesday, November 5th. Among the numerous amendments and ordinance questions on this year's ballot is initiated Ordinance 309. This measure asks if Denver voters should adopt an ordinance prohibiting slaughterhouses, as well as their construction, maintenance, and use in the city. Let's begin by meeting the participants who will discuss the pros and cons of initiated Ordinance 309. Beginning at my right is Natalie Fulton, the social media lead with Pro Animal Future. She will be speaking in favor of initiated Ordinance 309. And on my left is former City Councilwoman at Large, Robin Kniech. She will be speaking in opposition to initiated Ordinance 309. Let's welcome both of our speakers. We will begin with 1-minute opening statements from both speakers. Ms. Fulton, you are up first, speaking for initiated Ordinance 309.
Thank you. Most Americans are deeply uncomfortable with the way animals are treated on factory farms and industrial slaughterhouses. It offends our sense of compassion for animals that most people in Denver share. 309 gives voters a chance to move away from some of the worst forms of intensive animal farming by banning industrial slaughterhouses in city limits. Superior Farms, the only facility that would be impacted, is the picture of the worst way of treating animals. It's the largest industrial lamb slaughterhouse in the U.S., brutally killing 500,000 6-month-old lambs every single year. Former workers describe rampant animal abuse, and neighbors complain about the stench and severe pollution of the Platte River. Worst of all is the impact on the people who work there. Research shows slaughterhouse workers have 400% increases in depression, anxiety, and PTSD due to the unique psychological stress caused by killing animals all day.
And now the opening statement from Ms. Kniech, speaking against ballot-initiated Ordinance 309.
Denver. I represented this community for 12 years. 309, the ban on slaughterhouses, is wrong for our city because it unfairly targets just one employee-owned business and puts them out of business. It's unfair to the 160 workers who will lose their jobs. 1 in 4, women, 80% people of color. Workers like those here today with names and families: James, Carlos, Jennifer, Isabella, Gustavo. Elders who aren't here today but rely on retirements funded by the employee-owned profits. Make no mistake, this ban provides not a cent of compensation nor new jobs for these workers. Listen, I was a vegetarian for 30 years. Even I know that banning one business is the wrong way to go about this. It won't change how people eat. It will result in more food coming from overseas, which is wrong for the environment. This ban doesn't mention and won't do anything to advance animal welfare. It is supported by groups that are not from our community, and those within our community are united in opposition, respected Latino leaders from Global Area Swansea, Labor, and others.
Thank you, Robin. And we've heard the opening statements from both of you. Now, Natalie, you will have an opportunity to ask Robin a question. Robin, you'll have 30 seconds to answer. Natalie, your question.
According to OSHA, the turnover rate of kill floor employees in slaughterhouses typically exceeds 100% annually because of the extreme physical and psychological stress of killing animals all day. This is important because while Superior Farms advertises that they're employee-owned, workers have to stay at the company for 3 years to qualify. A former employee told us almost no one lasts that long. What is the annual turnover rate for the workers who handle and kill animals at Superior Farms?
I think we've had enough lies on debate stages this week. Here are the facts. The employees of Superior Farms are owners of that facility. 1/4 of those workers have been there for more than 5 years. Workers like Jennifer Valdez, who's here. 1/6 of those workers have been at the company for more than 10 years. Folks like Gustavo and Isabella, who have a combined 55 years. These workers are paid at least $40,000 a year under the highest minimum wage in the country, and they get retirement benefits.
All right, and now, Ms. Kniech, your turn to ask Ms. Fulton a question, and you will have 30 seconds to reply.
Ms. Fulton, a leader of your organization stormed onto the stage and grabbed a microphone right out of the hands of Kamala Harris. On a recent podcast, that leader said that this ballot measure isn't about Denver. I quote, "It's about ending all agriculture for meat nationally." Can you please explain to the 160 workers, the local businesses who will lose their business, the drivers, the ranchers, and can you please explain to Denver voters why we should be your experiment and how far you actually think it's okay to go to end eating meat?
This is absolutely not an experiment on Denver. We have over 150 volunteers local to Denver in the community. Whether you're vegetarian, vegan, or eat meat, we can all agree that factory farming and industrial slaughterhouses are wrong, and Superior Farms is the face of factory farming here in Denver. We need to move away from this industry. 50% of Americans want to ban slaughter, and 68% of Americans feel that the factory farming of animals is one of the most important issues of our time period.
Let's continue with the direct questions from our speakers. And Robin, another question for Natalie. As before, Natalie, you'll have 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you so much. You know, it's interesting, Ms. Fulton, that on a recent podcast, your leader shared that you were flying in a number of out-of-state activists to help with this campaign. I spoke to a woman who lives right here in the community. She's a Latina leader, and she actually shares your vision for the end of factory farming. And here's what she had to say about this measure. She said, "It's short-sighted, ill-conceived, and it won't do anything to pave the way for change. It's done nothing to prepare for a just transition." So I'm just curious, why doesn't this measure say anything about animal welfare, environmental standards, or the workers that you're claiming you care so much about? And why did you start with eliminating the jobs of 160 workers without talking to them or to the local community you've tried to represent, you speak for?
Sure. This measure came from a coalition of people concerned with animal cruelty, along with residents of Globeville who are sick of the intense air and water pollution. Industrial slaughterhouses are known to prey on marginalized communities like Globeville, which is majority Hispanic, and part of the most polluted residential zip code in the entire country. 309 was developed with help from Candy Baca, who was the councilwoman representing Globeville at the time the measure was submitted. We've also worked with the GES Coalition to make sure we're considering their firsthand perspective.
And now, Ms. Fulton, another question for Ms. Kniech. And Ms. Kniech, you'll have 30 seconds for your response.
Superior Farms has a serious record of legal violations. They've been sued by the federal government for animal cruelty, fined over $90,000 for labor violations, and violated the EPA's Clean Water Act for over 4 years and counting. The Denver plant was sued by employees for racial and religious discrimination and fraud. Why should Denver voters trust a multi-million-dollar corporation headquartered in California with a proven record of breaking the law?
Unlike you, I have spent time in this community and working with these workers about some of these questions. My parents worked in factory jobs, construction, and in factories, and those are also risky jobs. One single violation is not a pattern, and no one's ever asked for their job to be eliminated to keep them safe. They did miss some paperwork filings, and I hope to be able to talk more about that, but the regulatory process is working. This plant has never put any waste into this river from its production. It has a sanitary sewer permit, and it's in full compliance.
Thank you, Ms. Kniech. Our next few rounds will feature our speakers responding to questions submitted by our forum organizers. Each speaker will answer each question, and they will have 30 seconds to do so. Natalie Fulton, who is here speaking in support of initiated Ordinance 309, you will be first to answer this question. If slaughterhouses are outlawed in Denver, where will those workers who lose their jobs be able to find work without moving to a different county?
We included a provision in our legislation to require the city of Denver to prioritize affected workers in their employment assistance program. This is a well-funded program with great opportunities for workers for better, safer jobs. We are confident they will be able to find better jobs than working in a slaughterhouse. Slaughterhouse workers have high rates of PTSD, depression, and substance abuse. No one wants to kill animals all day, and they shouldn't have to anymore.
And now Robin Kniech, who is speaking against initiated Ordinance 309. Your response to that question.
Yes. No one spoke with these workers about what they want. They can work with their company to improve their conditions, and they have a method for doing that as employee owners. The fact is that Denver's assistance programs provide no cash assistance. They provide no guaranteed replacement jobs. The proponents have blithely suggested they should all just go work in construction. A similar hard job, also with safety risks, but that's up to these workers. It's not for someone else to tell them where they should be. It's important that we work in community to really address challenges with the people who are impacted.
And next question from our organizers for our guests. Robin, you'll respond first. You'll have 30 seconds. How will closing slaughterhouses in Denver make a positive impact on animal slaughter in general?
Well, I don't believe this ban will have any impact on that. These are not factory farmed animals. This facility is taking in lambs who are free range and ranchers throughout the West, and it has really high standards. It is halal certified, which means that it is humane and it serves the Muslim community. It's the only source of halal lamb in Colorado. There are USDA inspectors on site, and it is regularly inspected by customers like Whole Foods who buy their products. Those are all protections to ensure that it is safe, and this measure includes no words about animal welfare.
Your answer to that question, Natalie.
A former Superior Farms employee said the number one thing he wants voters in Denver to know about the facility is rampant animal cruelty. Superior Farms has a recorded history of abusing animals. They were prosecuted by the federal government for multiple violations of humane slaughter regulations and failure to follow proper halal practices. That means consumers were buying halal meat when it shouldn't have been certified as halal. To position themselves as a leader of humane handling is dishonest, and the people of Denver will see right through it. Lambs regularly arrive dead to the slaughterhouse, which shows abuse across all areas of the supply chain.
Now for our final round of submitted questions from the forum organizers. Natalie, you'll be first to respond and have 30 seconds. Please indicate the top 2 financial contributors to your side of this issue.
We see this as having a positive effect on the Globeville community. People don't want to open businesses near the slaughterhouse, and businesses that are currently there feel like they can't turn on their AC because the stench drives customers away. Globeville has poverty levels almost double the average in Denver. They are a marginalized community and have been left behind of Denver's success. There are many successful businesses that could be run there. Slaughterhouses across the world have been turned into museums, breweries, and other businesses that will help the community and the neighborhood.
So the question was to indicate the top 2 financial contributors to your side of the issue.
Oh, my bad. Our top 2 contributors are a bunch of small donors, and I don't think there are top 2. It's more of a mix of a lot of grassroots activists and other people.
Okay.
Yep.
Robin, Kniech, your answer to the question.
Thanks, I'd like the extra time as well, thank you. Unfortunately, we had another lie in this debate stage. The searchlight system for campaign finance indicates only 2 contributors to this campaign. One is an out-of-state Bitcoin tycoon, and another is a single C4 dark money organization. Our campaign, a majority of the funding for our campaign has come from Colorado donors. It comes from a broad coalition which has included contributions from labor unions. It comes from sheep ranchers who are independent from throughout the West, including here in Colorado. It comes from business associations. It's come from more than 50 individuals who are small donors.
And Robin, in the spirit of fairness, the top 2 financial contributors to your side of the issue.
I don't have those exact names. I gave you the best data that I have available, which is this broad coalition, ranchers, livestock associations, and others. I don't have the names of those individuals.
Okay.
But I will ask folks if they want to check out the public finance reporting we've done on the Denver Searchlight system, as well as to go to Stop the Ban for all the endorsers.
Thank you, Robin.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, that does it for our questions. And now on behalf of the forum organizers, we would like to thank both of you for your participation in this forum. We hope we have given you a fair look at the pro and con arguments for initiated Ordinance 309. Again, it asks if Denver voters should adopt an ordinance prohibiting slaughterhouses, as well as their construction, maintenance, and use in the city. Our thanks also to the Denver Decides partners, which include the Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation and the League of Women Voters of Denver. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. We would like to extend a special thank you to our hosts for today's event, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Remember, the election is Tuesday, November 5th. Let your voice be heard, be sure you are registered, and be sure to vote. For complete election information online, go to denverdecides.org. I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7. Thanks for joining us.
We're clear. Next forum is in a quick 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
It is, I believe that's for, yep, that's you. Then you can stick around. We'll be back in about 5 minutes, so. And this one is the bourbon.
Honestly.
Yep.
Like, if you get real desperate, can you answer, like, quickly? I saw that. Well, do you have, like, your shotgun on? Because I try to keep the room pretty balanced. Like, your shotgun should have had good. It wasn't too echoey.
Okay, one more. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah, I thought the reason I thought she was going to say for that one, there are 2 finals. But I didn't know that. I was like, no, we got to answer that one. Cool. Yeah, they are. It'll be added again. And then I met Landon. A minute ago.
Landon?
much. I appreciate that. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate you. Oh, absolutely. No problem.
All right, now you see how it goes.
Yes. Thanks.
For Amanda, 11, she is here.
Well, we got 15 minutes to go. I think if you want, I can stop here.
I'm not going to make that call. She's on it. 11 o'clock.
Pleasure.
Ready. And we got to meet earlier. So you got to see how and everything. Not too bad, huh? It goes quick. I will. It goes quick. Absolutely. I'm just here to keep everybody on time. That's it.
Well, I'm going to do my best.
Oh, you'll do well, I'm sure.
Okay, we're 2 minutes roughly away.
That's your timer counting.
Okay.
It's not on now.
All right. Cool.
How's it going? You're going to keep this roughly hand width away from your face, and then that
So for
little
this
happy
one, I'll
face
say right there is
supposed
your
to-
That's me.
camera. Yeah,
That's
no
mine.
problem.
Great.
I'm up again. I mean, who's anti-animal?
Yeah. Do you want me to plug it back in? I didn't realize she was gone again. Yeah.
I can trigger record, but it doesn't use for recording.
Cool.
Okay, here comes our last forum for the morning on the fur ban. If you want to stay after this forum, there'll be presentations from several city council members on some more of the issues that are on the ballot. So hang around if you'd like to. We welcome you to.
You all will get to hear my lovely intro again. But we'll get to the meat of the issue, I promise. Okay, and we're standing by. Hello, I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7, and welcome to Denver Decides. This community partnership is dedicated to accessible and transparent elections. The partnership includes the League of Women Voters of Denver, Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation, and is presented by Denver 8 TV. Before we begin, we would like to extend a special thank you to our hosts for today's event, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Our mission today is to present a ballot issue forum in anticipation of the general election coming up on Tuesday, November 5th. Among the numerous amendments and ordinance questions on this year's ballot is initiated Ordinance 308. This measure asks if Denver voters should adopt an ordinance prohibiting fur products and the manufacture, distribution, display, sale, or trade of certain animal fur products. Let's begin by meeting the participants who will discuss the pros and cons of initiated Ordinance 308. Beginning at my right is Natalie Fulton. She is the spokesperson with Pro Animal Future. She will be speaking in favor of initiated Ordinance 308. And to my left is Landon Gates, campaign manager with Hands Off My Hat, and he will be speaking in opposition to initiated Ordinance 308. Let's welcome both of our speakers. We will begin with 1-minute opening statements from both speakers. Ms. Fulton, you are up first, speaking for initiated Ordinance 308.
308 is an important step toward ending the cruel, unnecessary, and outdated practice of killing animals just to wear their fur. 95% of fur comes from factory farms where wild animals like mink, rabbits, and foxes spend their entire lives trapped in cages barely larger than their bodies. Every fall, they're gassed or anally electrocuted to preserve the product. Fur trapping is no better, with animals stuck in painful traps for days before they're bludgeoned or starved to death. All this for a vain fashion statement that only rich people can afford. 71% of Americans oppose killing animals for their fur. It's banned in over 25 countries and many cities across the U.S., including Boulder. Most voters I talk to are shocked that it's even still allowed to be sold in Denver and can't wait to vote against such egregious animal cruelty. Despite all this serious animal abuse, the best the opposition can muster is to complain about high-end cowboy hats.
And now the opening statement from Mr. Gates, speaking against ballot-initiated Ordinance 308.
Thank you. Thank you to the Inter-Neighborhood Cooperation and the League of Women Voters of Denver for hosting this event and allowing the Hands Off My Hat campaign to participate. This ban seems simple on its face, but in reality, it is an attack on our Western heritage, our traditions, and our city's brand. This measure goes so far as to ban the sale of many cowboy hats and fly fishing flies that use real fur, in addition to the many other items Denverites wear today. From custom hat makers to the local fly shop, this measure will impact many small businesses in our city. This measure will harm some of Denver's most iconic events, including the National Western Stock Show, the Denver March Powwow, and the Indian Market and Southwest Arts Fest. Our campaign has been endorsed by Ernest House Jr., a member of the Ute Mountain Ute Indian Tribe and former executive director of the Colorado Commission on Indian Affairs, along with Councilwoman Jamie Torres, Senator Robert Rodriguez, former Mayor Wellington Webb, and former Councilwoman Rosemary Rodriguez, among many others.
We have heard opening statements from both of you, so now, Natalie, you have an opportunity to ask Landon a question, and Landon, you'll have 30 seconds to respond. Natalie, your question.
The website for your campaign has co-opted images of Native Americans to argue against banning fur, despite the fact that 308 specifically includes an exemption for members of Native American tribes. Given that the fur trade was a major driver of colonialism and the #1 threat to indigenous ways of life in many regions, why are you tokenizing Native Americans to protect an industry that mostly benefits rich corporations?
Look, this measure discriminates against many Native Americans. The measure requires that an individual be a member of a tribe in order to qualify for the exemption. Many Native Americans today are not official members of tribes. Are you intending to require Native Americans to carry papers to prove their membership? Are you intending for someone to police the purchases to make sure that the item they're buying is going to qualify for one of the allowed uses? It appears that this group is the one that wants to decide who is Native American enough.
Okay.
Now, Landon, you do have an opportunity to ask Natalie a question, and Natalie, you'll have 30 seconds to reply.
Did you do an economic study on how this measure will financially affect the Native American community, the National Western Stock Show, and small business owners? And if so, what were the results of that study?
In the modern world, killing animals for fur is always cruel and unnecessary. As far as the Western Stock Show, most vendors there don't even sell fur, and many people I talk to are shocked that it's even part of the conversation. They will be completely fine, as well as the other stores that sell fur, like Neiman Marcus and Louis Vuitton. I don't think they're going to be going out of business. We crafted the Native American exemption with the help of Caleb Begay, a community organizer and member of the Navajo Nation. Fur factory farming disrespects wildlife, which is why many Native Americans in Denver support 308.
And let's continue with the direct questions from our speakers for another round. Landon, you will start off this round. Another question for Natalie. And as before, Natalie, you'll have 30 seconds to reply.
Great. Your campaign's financial disclosures suggest that your campaign is largely funded by a secret dark money group, Pro Animal Future, that doesn't disclose its donors. Will you commit to disclosing all of Pro Animal Denver's and Pro Animal Future's donors to the clerk today, just like the rest of us have to?
Pro Animal Future is a local grassroots group with over 150 volunteers in Denver. Calling us a dark money group is absolutely unhinged, especially considering that the opposition on our measures is funded by big corporations who have a vested interest in preserving industries that abuse animals. I am not the funding person. I will try my best to get all of the funding out in the open so people can stop attacking us with this ridiculous claim.
And now, Natalie, another question for Landon. Landon, you'll have 30 seconds for your response.
Modern technology has made it completely unnecessary to kill animals for fur. The fur industry is environmentally devastating, much worse than faux fur, since the animals eat and emit waste. Today, fur products are unnecessary luxuries, and polling shows most voters agree that it's time to leave fur behind. Do you think animals are objects, or do you just not care that they suffer?
I grew up on my grandparents' ranch. I know what it takes to raise and care for animals. But this ban discriminates, it hurts our local businesses, and sends an unwelcome message to the thousands of attendees, exhibitors, and vendors at the stock show, the powwow, and the Indian market. Think about it. The National Western Stock Show generates $171 million in annual economic activity. Our fly fishing community generates $500 million in economic activity and supports nearly 3,300 jobs right here in the Denver metro area.
Thank you, Landon. Our next few rounds will feature our speakers responding to questions submitted by our forum organizers. Each speaker will answer each question, and they will have 30 seconds for their answer. Natalie Fulton, who is here speaking in favor of initiated Ordinance 308, you will be first to answer this question. If fur sales are banned in Denver, what would be the future of this issue?
We would like to see the fur industry end because it is cruel and unnecessary. It should be left in the past with other forms of animal abuse that used to be tradition, but we now look back on with horror. Dogfighting was legal in the U.S. until 1976. Whaling used to be part of our culture. As society evolves and morality evolves, our tradition should reflect that as well. There is absolutely no reason to use fur in 2024, and we need to move on from this vile industry.
And now Landon Gates, who is here speaking against initiated Ordinance 308, your response to the question.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yes. If fur sales are banned in Denver, what would be the future of this issue?
I don't think this measure is going to have the intended impact that the proponents are seeking. We don't have fur farming in Denver. We don't have fur farming in the state of Colorado. So I don't believe it's going to have near the impact that they claim.
Okay. Next question from our organizers for our guests. Landon, you will respond first, and you will have 30 seconds to answer. If this issue passes, it will have an economic impact on some of Denver's major cultural activities, including the National Western Stock Show, the Denver March Powwow, and many sport fishing activities. How could those cultural events be compensated for their losses?
They won't.
Did you want to expand upon that?
No.
Okay. And Natalie, your response to the question.
New technology has made fur completely unnecessary, even in fly fishing. Many fly fishers have adopted synthetic alternatives like EP fibers and craft fur, foam, tinsel, mylar, and rubber legs. They are comparable in terms of price and offer more durability and flexibility than animal fur. We may need to take a short economic hit to evolve past some of the worst animal cruelty that's happening in Denver. If you notice in his answer just now, he said that there is no fur farming in Colorado, which acknowledges that fur farming is wrong.
And our final round of submitted questions from our forum organizers. Natalie, you will respond first, and you'll have 30 seconds. Please indicate the top 2 financial contributors to your side of this issue.
I feel like we've covered this. I am not sure the top 2 contributors, but I can tell you that we are not funded by any out-of-state interest groups or corporations. This issue comes down to people who care about animals versus corporations. We got over 32,000 signatures on a completely volunteer basis. Our volunteers spent nights and weekends raising awareness about this issue, and voters in Denver are excited to vote against some of the worst animal cruelty that takes place in this city.
And now, Landon, your response to the question.
We look forward to seeing your next financial disclosure. Our top 2 contributors to the No on 308 campaign is the National Western Stock Show, because they're going to be one of the entities that is greatly impacted by this. We have a number of other individuals, Stanton Dodge, Jeff Keller, community leaders that don't support this type of cancel culture. They respect our traditions, our heritage, and our culture. They know the importance of the National Western Stock Show and the powwow and the Indian market and other events.
And that brings us to the end of our questions. So now, on behalf of the forum organizers, we would like to thank both of you for your participation in this forum. All right, hang out for just a moment. I have a little bit more to say. We hope we've given you a fair look at the pro and con arguments for initiated Ordinance 308. Again, this measure asks if Denver voters should adopt an ordinance prohibiting fur products and the manufacture, distribution, display, sale, or trade of certain animal products. Our thanks also to the Denver Decides partners, which include Interneighborhood Cooperation and the League of Women Voters of Denver. Denver Decides is presented by Denver 8 TV. We would like to extend a special thank you to our hosts for today's event, the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association and the 6th Avenue United Church of Christ. Remember, the election is Tuesday, November 5th. Let your voice be heard, be sure you are registered, and be sure to vote. For complete election information online, go to denverdecides.org. I'm Micah Smith with Denver 7. Thanks for joining us.
Okay, we'll begin our presentations from city council members in about 5 minutes.
Okay, well, we'll stay in touch.
Okay,
I was just kind of going to leave it at her feet.
Councilperson Amanda Sawyer to the front, please.
Amanda Sawyer, I won.
Sawyer A, under A for Amanda Sawyer.
Who's she debating? Or no, this is just her info.
Right, yeah. So she brought those. How you're dressed. You're not sure. I don't have one. We're never coming. Yeah, could you?
And you know this, keep this roughly in hand with away from your face. You know me, I'm real bad at that part. Are we? I don't know if that doesn't matter. Yes. Yeah. Are we recording? Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, and these are just going to be provided for you guys, whatever you want to do with them. Oh, great. You're going to put them on air or anything? I'm not going to. Yeah, it's whatever your office wants to do.
There's no opposition to it, so it's, like it makes sense. It's solving a problem that exists, and we're moving on.
Right?
Like,
Pretty much it. Vote for these things.
Great.
Oh man.
I'm just trying to figure out what ballot number it is. Because I don't know. Dave was going to go with.
We've had so many today.
I know. And they just assigned them, and I know the email is in my inbox, and I just haven't had time to deal with it because, we have one more day to read an 800-page financial document for Monday.
Budget book to get through.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Yeah, and that's right. And why wouldn't we do some in the morning, some in the afternoon? Yeah.
Nobody has time to ask questions. Right. So you don't get anything else.
Well, we do. It's just we email the questions, and unless you're going to pour us, you're not going to see us. You know what I mean? So do I. It's the single most important thing we do, right? So.
Especially just because we're such a new area. There's going to be a back and forth. I couldn't believe if I came up with a number.
love the impetus to action because I think, right, like it doesn't all have to be done in the first 5 minutes. Like it doesn't. Do we know what ballot number it is? I can do it. Lynne,
I'll introduce at least this next section.
Okay.
So let me just get a little show.
Okay.
But she was supposed to.
It'll be fine.
I know. I'm going to turn it over to you. You're doing the first two. I am Jamie
Well, I'm going to do the first one. Torres is going to do the second one.
That's you, right? 2W?
Yay! Thank you.
But is there a runner show? Can I take a look at the one? Because, you know, she was supposed to.
It's hot in here. Thank you again for setting this up. This is
We're going to start. 30 seconds. Like once she intros you?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll plan on. No, I'll walk around. I'm just, you know, we're all good.
All right, we're going to get going again. Thank you all for staying. You're stuck with me now. A couple of additional measures we're going to be covering today are ones where we do not have both pro and con. So this will not be a part of Denver Decides, since it's important for them for every measure that they actually present, that they have both sides. So instead, we're going to be covering a number of topics that will be presented by our city council members and Mr. Eric Tade, who is here for the arbitration. So first, we're going to do the elected officials' salaries with Councilwoman Sawyer. And then the Human Rights Cabinet Agency will be, I think, Ms. Councilwoman Torres.
Yes, Councilwoman
Oh, there,
Torres.
and Councilwoman Torres and Sawyer. And then we will be doing the citizenship for police and firefighters. Councilwoman Torres will be taking that one, and arbitration for Denver Fire Department. Mr. Tate will be taking that. And then collective bargaining for certain city employees, and Councilwoman Parady will be speaking. So we will just ask them as one finishes, the other can come up. And thank you again for being here, and then we'll close it out real quickly after they're finished. Thank you.
All right, well, good morning. Thank you all so much for being here. And before we get started, I want to just extend sincere gratitude to our team at TV8, to the League of Women Voters, and to the Cherry Creek North Neighborhood Association, especially Lou, and team for setting this up. It is so important that we have this opportunity to come and answer questions and explain kind of what's going on the ballot and the debates, in particular, those contested items. It's really important to be able to get this information out in front of the voters, especially with a ballot that's as long as the one that we're looking at. It is 6 pages, 3 pages front and back, that will be coming to you in October. I'm Amanda Sawyer. I represent the residents of District 5. Welcome to District 5. I know, we're lucky here. So the first item I will be talking to you about today is an item that I sponsored. It's referred question 2W. And this is a question of, shall we set the salaries of elected officials in Denver? That looks a little bit like we're giving ourselves a raise. And I'm telling you right now, we're not giving ourselves a raise. So, how many of you in the room have read an article or seen City Council vote on their salaries in an election year? Raise hands. You all notice this? There's a number of news articles out there about it. Right. This is a massive conflict of interest. It is ridiculous that City Council votes on the salaries of future elected officials in the middle of an election season. It has the effect of undermining your faith in our government, because even though the charter of the City of Denver says very clearly that this is how we set the salaries and nothing about that is changing with 2W, it looks like we're voting on our own salaries, and that undermines our residents' faith in their government, and that is a conflict of interest that we're trying to change with this charter change measure. So what does this charter change measure do? It does not change anything about the formula that is set in the charter that already exists that says how elected official salaries are set. What it does do is it gives the power back to you. So if our residents vote yes on 2W, on this charter change, then elected official salaries will be set moving forward. There will be a self-enacting ordinance. You, in effect, will have approved our salaries into the future. So there will not be any more voting on the floor for elected salaries moving forward, especially in an election year. You will have approved those dollars, you will have approved those numbers, and we will move forward, and that conflict of interest will be solved. So that's what we're doing with referred measure 2W. I'm happy to answer any questions. It's pretty straightforward. Again, we're here today because there's no opposition to this measure, because it makes sense. This is a good governance measure that clears up a conflict of interest that undermines our residents' faith in their government. And here we are. Thank you. Yes, so the question was, does this mean that city officials will have automatic increases? Yes and no is the answer to that. City officials already have automatic increases. There is a formula that is set in the charter. And so city officials, by charter, receive the lesser of either what our staff members got, average of our staff members over the last 4 years, or the average of the consumer price index. So that already exists in our charter, it's already set. Why we have to vote on it now is because there's an interplay between the state constitution and the charter of the city and county of Denver that exists because we're a home rule city and county. So right now we have to vote on it. By doing 2W, we will change that so we don't have to vote on it anymore. It just happens. Great question. Anything else? All right, moving on. Councilwoman Torres, you want to come and join me?
Okay, we'll
Do you
start.
want to introduce yourself?
Yes, absolutely. I am Jamie Torres. I'm the councilwoman for West Denver, District 3, and proud to have sponsored this next charter change referral with Councilwoman Sawyer.
Go ahead.
Can I start?
Yeah.
Sure. So this one is adding the Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships to the charter, and its executive director to the mayor's cabinet. So the Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships has existed since 1947. It was created by Mayor Quig Newton, and it has existed in some form. At that time, it was a committee, it then evolved into a commission, and then it became an agency of many offices. And those offices include the Office on Aging, Office of Disability Rights, Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, our Financial Empowerment Office. It has become a real spine of what's needed in our city, the pulse of the community in the city. And what we saw during COVID was the direct involvement and dependency on this agency's expertise during the pandemic, while we were trying to make sure that we were responding to some of our most vulnerable communities, people with disabilities, some of our elders. How do we do outreach? How do we know who our partners are who serve those communities? And so this is ensuring that the agency, thank you, is in the charter, which means it can only be then removed by a vote of the people. And its executive director is directly tied to the mayor's cabinet and leadership within that cabinet. So there's only 9?
There are 11.
11 members of the cabinet. Thank you, I was confusing the
Yep.
safety officials.
Yep.
11 members of the cabinet, this would be the 12th. And just one that we think is really important and one that maps out, I think, the future of the city.
Yeah, I think that's right, and I will just add to what Councilwoman Torres said that what's really important, I always start with what is the problem we're trying to solve here, right? The problem we're trying to solve here is that our Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships doesn't exist in the charter, which means it can go away. The 11 existing charter agencies that are in the charter right now as the quote-unquote mayor's cabinet are agencies like our Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, Parks and Recreation, our Community Planning and Development Department, our Denver Human Services Department, all of those kind of required agencies that we need to have a city run and run well. And so we think that our Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships is important enough to elevate it to that level. And the reason is because they are really that agency that connects with you. They are our community support agency. And we think that your tax dollars are important enough that you need to see that enshrined in the charter so that you will see that we value the agency that provides the most support to you as our residents. That's it. Questions? Yeah. It's 2S, I believe.
Thank you. Yes.
Is it 2S?
It is 2S.
It is 2S.
It will not.
So the question, just for those, if we end up sharing this video, the question for those at home who couldn't hear was, is there a financial impact to making this Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships a charter agency? And the answer is no, this is revenue neutral.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you. Oh, one more.
A lot of city agencies have a requirement to and need to communicate with the public, parks, DOTI, planning and development. Will this create a confusion about public outreach, or will this agency help the other agencies be better at what they do? I kind of set that up.
Yeah, no, I think it's the latter. Thank you. So the question was, does adding this agency to the charter take away from other departments' abilities to or obligations to connect with community, or does it help? And I think it absolutely helps. And actually, they already partner in a lot of ways with our other major departments like community planning and development on their community engagement efforts. And we're actually trying to ensure that a community empowerment office and focus is actually built into the future Agency for Human Rights and Community Partnerships. But it is a collaborative space now, and I anticipate it would continue to be that. Yeah.
I hope.
It would.
It's a great question.
Everybody's not tripping over each other. That's
Great. Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. You can head out.
I'm gonna exit stage right.
Okay. Am I good to go? Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Councilwoman Jamie Torres. I represent West Denver District 3. And I am pleased to offer a bit of information about 2T. So T is for Taurus. That's an easy way to remember that one. But this one drops citizenship language from the civil service section of the charter, which covers police and fire department. So what the current language is, it requires that only U.S. citizens apply to be police and firefighters. This would drop that language. What this does and what it does not do, I want to be really clear about. What it does is it allows anybody who is legally able to work, who has a work visa, legal authorization to work, to apply and have their application considered. They still have to meet all of the eligibility requirements, language requirements, criteria for qualification, and then even compete with everyone else who's also applying. It doesn't change any of those qualifications. It only allows non-citizens to apply. And the non-citizens that are most likely to apply are legal permanent residents, and it's also open to DACA recipients. And DACA means Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. And I'll explain why that's an included population and why it matters now. And this is as a result of some state legislation. But I want to give some local context to this and why this is not a new effort. It is not totally innovative. It is just new to Denver for the police and fire. It's because the Sheriff's Department already allows these individuals to apply. They already have removed the language that limited it to only U.S. citizens. And it was because the Department of Justice handed out a decision that excluding legal applicants, legal residents who have legal authorization to work, excluding them from an application process was actually employment discrimination. So in 2016, there was a complaint filed, and in 2018, the Department of Justice entered into a settlement agreement with the Sheriff's Department to have that language removed. Now, they don't live in there, their language doesn't live in the charter, so it did not affect police and firefighters. And so that language remained. But Sheriff's Department already does offer this opportunity. Who else offers this opportunity? We are in a pretty collaborative space of who already hires non-citizens who are able to legally work. Aurora Police Department allows legal permanent residents. Boulder allows legal permanent residents. Around the country, states are even authorizing for LPRs, legal permanent residents, and DACA recipients to be allowed to apply to their first responder and safety departments. In the first year that the LA Police Department opened up this opportunity for DACA recipients, they already allowed legal permanent residents. They got a dozen DACA recipients to apply. So national context, that's what kind of our peer review and research showed us. But why now and why Denver? In the 2023 legislative session here in the state, the legislature passed bipartisan the ability for DACA recipients to become post-certified. So this is the statewide certification that allows somebody to carry and utilize a gun in employment, so to be a police officer. And so that opened a new window for DACA recipients that was not already there. This comes as a recommendation from our police chief. Councilwoman, Council President Amanda Sandoval and I are the sponsors of this effort, and we had an early conversation both about the diversity of our police department, its reflectiveness of our community, as well as just eligibility and enrollment numbers in our police academy. They are low. They want to be able to capture as many people who are interested, who are passionate about this job, and get them to apply and see if they can qualify. So who else supports this? I've mentioned the police chief, the fire chief also supports this, and the Civil Service Commission, and that is the hiring agency for police and fire. They don't go through career service in the same way a city employee does. The Civil Service Commission is the one who hires, and they have not changed a single criteria for eligibility or for vetting. So that standard still exists as high as it ever has been. So want to encourage folks to look into this information a bit more, not take the headlines that kind of try to sensationalize who would join our police department. Everyone completes an I-9, everyone provides a social security number, everyone is vetted, everyone is verified for background. And so that wanted to make sure that that information was out there and encourage you to vote for 2T. Thank you. Any questions? Okay, thank you all very much. I'll hand it over to former Chief Tade.
Hi, my name is Eric Tade. I'm representing Denver Firefighters Local 858 on referred ballot measure 2V, which seeks to provide binding arbitration for firefighters in collective bargaining. Now, that probably doesn't mean a whole lot to anybody when we put it that way, but essentially the way bargaining is done in the city and county of Denver right now for the police department and the sheriff department is that they go through, they negotiate, they have binding arbitration. So if either the city or the respective agency reach a point of impasse or disagreement, they send all the facts to an arbiter. The arbiter takes all that information and then issues a decision. That decision then becomes binding on both the city and the representative of the police department or the sheriff's department. However, firefighters have what's called advisory fact-finding. So when they're engaged in bargaining, if the city and firefighters can't come to an agreement, they send it to an advisory fact-finder who then issues an advisory opinion. And it is simply that, an advisory opinion. So it's not binding on either side. And as you can imagine, if it's not binding, neither side has a lot of motivation to change their opinion on this. So then the only recourse then is to refer another ballot question out to the citizens and let them decide. And while that works pretty well if it's a simple or a very large issue, say it's salary or something like that, where it doesn't work is when there's minor issues like which type of health care plans we're providing or the number of vacation days, and there isn't really opportunity to educate every citizen of Denver of what the comparables are. And so if there's an issue on, say, we'll use healthcare since it's always such a popular topic. It might be an issue that only has a cost of maybe $10,000 and both sides can't come to an agreement, and then we would have to refer it out to a ballot measure. Well, everybody here knows how expensive it is to run a ballot measure in the city and county of Denver, and so the cost and the complexity of the ballot measure far outweighs that of the issue that's at hand. So what we're seeking is to have binding arbitration the same as police and sheriff, so that way those issues can go forward, impartial arbiter can look at it, and then you have a binding effect on both the city and the firefighters. And I think that's the simplest way to put that. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Could you repeat the ballot measure?
The ballot measure is 2V, and it'll be titled Binding Arbitration. V as in Victor. Any other questions? It's like a lot of charter cleanup. I think, we see that as time evolves and systems become more sophisticated, we just are sometimes slow to clean up our charter and be reactive to that. I can tell you, I believe City Council supports it unanimously. Firefighters support it, the fire department supports it, and that's why we're up here today, because we can't really find anybody that would be in opposition to it. Any other questions? All right, perfect, thank you. Now we're going to hear from Councilwoman Parady about collective bargaining.
Hi everyone, I am Councilmember Sarah Parady. I'm one of your two council members at large, so I represent all of you, which is kind of my favorite thing. I'm here to speak about referred measure 2U, another unanimously referred measure by the entire council. And this has to do with collective bargaining for the rest of our city workers. So as Chief Tade referenced, we have long had the ability for employees in our safety agencies, our police, our sheriffs, our firefighters, to form unions and to come to the bargaining table with the city to talk about the terms and conditions of their employment. That is about a quarter of our city workforce, or about 3,000 workers. Our other approximately 11,000 city workers do not have that right, and the only way we can extend that to them is through a charter amendment. It's interesting, I actually learned throughout this process that if you look at sort of comparable cities to Denver, we're really an outlier in that our city employees do not have these rights. Most any similarly sized city, especially in kind of blue to purple states, workers have those rights. So right now, if you're a Denver city employee, you could join a union, you could pay them dues, but there's sort of no recognition of that from the city. The city doesn't actually have to, come and speak to your union and recognize them as your collective representative. How many have been in a union at one point or the other during their careers? Yeah. So our Denver teachers have had collective bargaining rights for a very long time, and then again our safety agencies, county workers throughout the state got those rights in 2022 through the state legislature. Interestingly, in Denver, our city workers are also county workers. We're a city and county, but that state amendment didn't touch us again because of home rule. So our city workers now are really outliers. The private sector workers generally have these rights. And so if you think about the impact of that on the citizens of Denver, part of what that means is that we have really struggled to compete with private or nonprofit employers in certain areas, particularly things like caseworkers, and then some of our more entry level, like trash truck drivers, parks workers, those kinds of positions. We try to compete on pay, but when the city budget is extremely constrained every year and we don't actually have worker voice in the room to sort of tell us what would make a difference when it comes to pay, when it comes to medical leave, when it comes to things like maybe childcare benefits, even when it just comes to things like remote work policies, all sorts of things like that. And all of those decisions are just made at a management level. I think that we're really missing opportunities to make our city workplaces better for our employees. When the public sector is able to unionize, that tends to have an immediate positive impact on pay equity because you see more women and people of color working in public employment. And so I've been a champion of that for a long time. We have our Colorado Pay Equity Act, which is an amazing bill, and this would sort of further those efforts. And finally, we worked for quite some time. The primary sponsors of the bill, actually council members Torres and Sawyer, both sponsored this measure as well. It went through council unanimously. The primary sponsors were myself, Councilmember Gonzalez Gutierrez, Councilmember Lewis, and Councilmember Hines. We spent months talking to our Office of Human Resources, the mayor, and sort of figuring out how we could make sure that this phases in gradually, just so that it doesn't feel like a huge logistical bite for the city government. And so there will be no more than one new union able to form in the city per year, so that there's time to go through bargaining with a new bargaining unit that forms. And that should encourage people to unionize in larger numbers so that we're looking at one of our entire city agencies and working with those employees and figuring out what they need. Trying to think if there's, the other thing I guess I should say is actually consistent with what Chief Tade was talking about. Right now for our safety agencies, not surprisingly, they have no ability to ever go on strike because that would be too threatening to the public health, safety, and welfare. That's why they have these other procedures, binding interest arbitration and fact-finding. Hopefully it will soon be binding interest arbitration for everybody. What we've done in that regard for the rest of our city employees and other employees who are touched by the charter, which includes Denver Water and the library, who are kind of quasi-city, for Denver Water and for the courts, we've determined that those employees also are sort of too crucial to public health, safety, and welfare. And so they would not have the ability even to ever attempt to strike. They would go straight to binding interest arbitration if they do unionize and there's an impasse. For the rest of the city agencies, what we set up is a structure that I'm really proud of, where if employees came to impasse and if they noticed that they had an intent to strike, that doesn't happen too often in public sector employment because people go without pay if they strike. But if it came to that, they would notice that, and the Denver mayor would then have a chance to certify whether or not that strike is unduly threatening to public health, safety, and welfare. So if it's winter and the snowplow drivers are striking, probably the mayor's going to say, no, you can't. So it allows a mayor to make that kind of contextual determination. During COVID, maybe we would not have wanted our public health employees to try to strike. But in other circumstances, our teachers basically have been unionized for about 75 years. There have been 3 teacher strikes in Denver, so it's like once every 25 years. They tend to get resolved pretty quickly, and that's never taken lightly by the workers themselves. But it also does tend to result in pay bumps. Our teachers finally got their pay up to a much higher standard after they briefly went on strike recently. So that determination being in the mayor's hands, we feel good about that because we think that mayors of Denver have the public health, safety, and welfare in mind. And in the event that a strike is prohibited, the off-ramp is, again, binding interest arbitration. So if these 2 amendments pass, we'll be in a really consistent realm where anytime, if a strike is unduly threatening to public health, safety, and welfare, it will not occur. So certain agencies are totally carved out of that, and certain agencies, the mayor can take a look at it. And then in that case, there will be binding interest arbitration. Happy to take questions about it. There's a lot of technical detail. This one was a heavy lift to get done, but I feel really proud of it. And I should say, in addition to all of City Council, we worked for a long time with the mayor, and we got him into support through some structural amendments, which I'm proud of. So.
I worked in my tech and then I was a teacher.
Yeah.
So I joined the union due to lawsuits from the one thing I'll say, I was in the lower valley, so when they would attempt to go on strike, they were limited by, fortunately, both BDA is pretty good, and they said, you need to have a reasonable request for an increase in salary, not just I'm going to go on strike because I don't make as much as a surgeon. Well, what's reasonable and that kind of thing. And so my question is,
Yeah, it's a great question. So the question is to do with kind of what can lead up to a strike. And I mean, that's why I give the example that teachers have basically 3 times in 75 years. It's not common. But there's an extremely lengthy and ornate process before that's even on the table. So workers cannot simply authorize a strike out of the blue. The way that bargaining works, and those who have been unionized probably know this, there's pages and pages in this charter amendment that give timetables where workers have to present what they're looking for that year. The city comes to the table, they work through it for specified amounts of time. If they in fact are not able to agree, they first go to mediation. There's many steps before workers could even try to authorize a strike. We have come to impasse pretty rarely with our public safety agencies as well. Binding interest arbitration has not been very common. We typically get to agreement, and that's because the unions, through their legal counsel, and I mean they're sophisticated actors. Everybody's looking at the same city budget. And everybody's sort of trying to get in the realm of what's actually possible. And one of the things you'll see is our safety employees have better leave than employees who haven't had those unionization rights. They have other kinds of benefits that they've kind of come to over the years. They have not gotten massive pay increases. They have gotten pay increases that they very much deserve. We've tried really hard to keep in step with neighboring jurisdictions, but it's not as though unionization sort of allows the typically we get to agreement because everybody understands that if you end up striking or going to arbitration, the reality of the city budget is still going to constrain you. We're required to have a balanced budget. So people are not able to sort of demand very unrealistic raises or benefits, and that's not how it's ever gone with our 3,000 unionized employees. They negotiate in good faith, and so do we, I'd like to think. Yeah, we have it's a pretty conservative, I would say, and highly structured collective bargaining proposal. And it's 12 pages long, and that's because we're trying to put a lot of guardrails in place. And that's how we got the mayor on board ultimately. I saw this gentleman's hand first, I think.
How is the arbitrator selected? And does this
Great question.
movement, this amendment, change the charter with respect to that?
Great question. The question is how are the arbitrators selected? So we have a few areas that we would be looking to City Council to implement through more detail in ordinances because it's sort of too in the weeds to put in our city charter. But we currently have an arbitration panel for our public safety agencies. I would expect that we would probably just use those same arbitrators. And they are all, it's like retired judges, that kind of thing. That's who tends to do labor arbitration, who have a lot of experience in the area. So we would set up an arbitration panel, and we would probably piggyback on the one we already have. Oh, sorry about that. Hi.
If the city government employees decide to unionize, I presume that's by a vote.
Yes.
Can an individual employee opt out and not be a member of the union?
Yes.
And if they are not a member of the union, are they still required to pay dues or similar fee?
So the question is, can employees be forced to pay union dues? No, that's now unconstitutional in the United States, so after the Janus case, so that's not on the table at all, and we wouldn't have the power to do that in the Denver Charter. I will say, though, that even if employees choose not to join, so if your workplace, if a majority of folks in your workplace do vote to unionize and become a bargaining unit so that they can bring the city to the table in this way, you do not have to be a member, but the bargaining unit does have to represent your interests. So they have to, once they become the bargaining agent, they have to represent the interests of everybody who's employed in that agency, so that it's kind of a tide that lifts all boats.
So my question is, if they decide not to unionize, are they still going to be getting their raises like they currently do now? Do they still get medical benefits?
Oh, yeah.
Then what is the benefit of being unionized?
Yeah, so the question is, will people continue to maintain the same pay structures and benefits that they already have, even if they don't unionize? Absolutely, we're not going to drop the floor on people. We actually have a comp and class system in the city that's quite structured, and it's public, and so that people kind of know what kind of raises they can expect year over year for different job classifications. And we compete. We did a survey recently to sort of compare our pay and benefits to other cities. We fall behind on certain benefits, especially leave, compared to the private sector in other cities. On pay, we do okay, except for some of our more entry-level workers. And there we are pretty behind, which I feel badly about because I mean, we have workers in the city who quite honestly can't afford to live in the city, and I just don't think that's right, honestly. And that contributes to the turnover. Part of the reason we struggle sometimes with things like trash deliveries, we cannot keep people driving the trucks. So, I mean, pay and cost of living have a lot to do with that. So the corollary, so none of that falls away. I mean, we're not reducing anything just because people now have the right to try to bargain and look for more. But what I found is that when you talk to city workers, the kind of things that they would be looking for in bargaining, sometimes they're not even on our radar. You know, childcare center in the web. You know, I mean, I don't know what it is that people will ask for because that's really up to them to get together and figure out what it is that would make their workplaces better. And when it comes to pay, keep in mind, like, the city's at the other side of the bargaining table. So it's a negotiation, and at the end of the day, a city government's going to agree to it if we think if it's best for us, I suppose, which is, again, what happens with our fire, police, and sheriffs. So the benefit is just that the city's huge. We have 11,000 workers across a ton of different workplaces, and management and the mayor and OHR and, you know, agency heads and city council, we do our best to try to support our workers, but we're not actually asking them in any kind of direct way. They're not in the room. You know, we do surveys from time to time, but bargaining is quite different because I think people have a chance to come together, talk amongst themselves about what would improve their work conditions, and then advocate for that in a way where they know they're not going to be retaliated against. You know, they're safe. There's that safety in numbers. So I think that's the benefit. And we don't know what people ask for until we find out. Yes? Oh, this is to you. I feel like there's some kind of cute joke in there about to you, but I don't have it yet. So, okay, I think we're out of time. I could talk about this all day. Thank you for your yes votes on to you. Thanks, Lou.
Thank you.
Thanks to all of our speakers today. I'm going to close you out here with a couple quick announcements. DenverINC.org is hosting an October 12th Food Justice event. That will be the Inc. Meeting for October. It is a lot about food justice. And also November 13th, the annual INC Awards. Go to denverinc.org and you can get details on that. Also, Lowry United Neighbors. You've got the representatives over here. They're members of Inc. They are going to be hosting a housing the unhoused on September 17th, 7 o'clock to 8:30 at the Eisenhower Chapel. They'll have representatives from the mayor's office and private sector nonprofit participants, and they will leave time for questions and answers. So again, thank you all for being here. The Denver Decides people, thank you so much. David, your team is amazing. It was great to work with these folks. And have a great weekend, the rest of the weekend. And go Broncos.